Metroid Other M. You may think you're prepared. You think, oh, it's a Nintendo game on a Nintendo console. It can't possibly be as bad as every other critic says it is, but no, it is that bad. It's atrocious. It's terrible. It's horrifying. It's not good. Let's just get this over with.
First up, the narrative. Unlike others, I don't think this is the worst part about the game, although cutscenes do drag on for too long. It picks up at the ending of Super Metroid, with the baby Metroid being killed by Mother Brain, so Samus decides to kill her. After being cleaned up and taken care of at a hospital in the Galactic Federation, she is off to find another bounty to hunt when another ship sends a distress signal out. I could say how it's a bottle ship and it's a baby's cry, bringing in the theme of motherhood into the game, but you know what? As you play through the narrative, the theme of motherhood is non-existent. Seriously, we have references to motherhood, but it's not a true theme of motherhood. After you arrive on the ship, you meet up with the Galactic Federation soldiers. What a surprise, and here I thought the GF gave Samus money and told her where to point her gun. After all, she did wipe out the Metroids and the space pirates almost single-handedly. I say almost because if you recall, Mother Brain helped out just a little bit. After fighting a creature made of hundreds if not thousands of cockroaches, Adam, the guy in charge of the mission, basically says, "Fine, you can hang out with us, but only if you do everything I say and only use the features of your power suit I say are fine." This was a major problem many have with this game, that Samus is taking orders from the military even though she isn't a member of the military anymore, saying this is misogynistic and unlike Samus's character. I'm breaking into the gameplay section a little bit here, but screw it, it's my critique and I'll write it how I want. Looking at it from a gameplay perspective, this means that Samus doesn't have to concentrate on finding upgrades for her weapons and armor. This sounds pretty good. However, after spending quite a bit of time in heat and taking a lot of damage, Adam says, "Okay, put on your Varia suit to avoid heat damage." Are you kidding me? You forced me to take heat damage, and only now that I'm fighting the boss of this section, you finally let me wear the armor? This was supposed to be one of the most brilliant minds of the GF's military, and he would let you take a ton of damage? I get that weapons could hurt other soldiers by accident, but better armor to protect yourself should not be a problem. Now here's how I would have written it. Zeebs, I don't care how the game pronounces it, Zeebs used to be the homeworld of the Chozo, so its destruction could have caused Samus's suit to lose its higher functions. Now, in the game, it is revealed that the station was creating bioweapons, something that is very illegal in the Galactic Federation, despite being a science vessel for the GF. In the game that comes directly after this in the timeline, Metroid Fusion, it is revealed that the scientists for the GF can make upgrades for Samus's power suit. So, why not make it so while experimenting with bioweapons, they were experimenting with power suit technology, seeing as it reacts to the biological functions of the person wearing it. Samus could have found what she needed and give good reason to explore the area, which was the main gameplay that Metroid is known for, and it would have made sense. Speaking of how I would have written things, in one of the many exposition-filled flashbacks, we see Samus giving a thumbs down and a line of soldiers with their thumbs going up. I imagined in the commercial that Samus had taken orders one too many times, and the orders given by Adam had resulted in the deaths of so many of her comrades. So instead of giving the thumbs up to follow the order, she gave a thumbs down and walked away because she'd had enough. How they wrote it was that she was being a rebellious girl doing it because she wasn't mature enough. Oh, they tried to make her sound mature, but it didn't work. At all. There's also a subplot about the GF not wanting the information about the station to get out, so there's a traitor among the soldiers there, and it could be anyone. You even have a boss fight with the traitor, his face cleverly hidden behind a panel. However, they don't get around to finishing that subplot. You might be able to solve it on your own, but you don't have a mystery novel open-ended for the reader to figure it out, and you don't have a Sherlock Holmes story where he never solves it, intending for the audience to solve it instead. They should have had a proper ending to it, or not have it at all. So what is redeemable about the story? Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't like how they introduced Ridley. The twists they took to bring him back after being killed in Super Metroid not only explain how he could have been in Fusion, but explain in a logical way how he appeared here, and I really like that. Now to transition into aesthetics with a bit of story that goes into the sound design. I am of course talking about Samus's personality. First off, her usual monotone and calmness. From what I understand, that is an honorable thing in Japan. To restrain emotion and remain stoic is what is cool to them and matches Samus's character for them. And when she does get emotional, there's good reason for it to happen. The writing for her lines isn't that good either, though. They're full of double beats explaining everything we just saw, and it's mainly just narration. A lot of the time, and this includes all of the dialogue, I feel a scene would have been stronger had they kept it silent, expressing it with ambiance and visuals rather than the explanations and narrations. But getting back to Samus. From what I understand, the first Metroid game did not sell well in Japan, but was a hit in the United States. So what I'm guessing happened is that the Japanese tried to make Samus more appealing to the Japanese, but at the same time they forgot to leave in what us Westerners liked about it. I wouldn't mind so much if Nintendo of America had done their job and localized it properly. See, if you're localizing a game, you don't just make a direct translation. If that were the case, Earthbound wouldn't nearly have the same amount of charm that it does. They could have scaled back Samus's monotone and exposition scenes to better match the West, but no, they just left it as is. The voice actress they chose isn't too bad, however. It's the dialogue that was awful. In fact, most of the voice actors are pretty good and sound design overall is pretty decent. I do have to say though that the music leaves no impression on me whatsoever. The songs I remember are tracks remastered from old Metroid games. The original music leaves a lot to be desired, and for a Nintendo game, that is a sin. The visuals look really nice, especially for a Wii title. The polygons are barely noticeable, the colors of the enemies pop, the particle effects of attacks are nice, and the environments inside the ship look so good that you forget that you're not on a planet. However, basic designs are varied. I do like what they did with the gravity suit, having you glow purple instead of your suit being entirely purple. That was a fantastic idea. However, you get lost in the levels because you often forget what you can do in the environment because the devices that you need to activate to move forward or the walls you can climb on blend too well in the environment and they don't look any different. That was not a smart idea. Now, I have one more question. As we zoom out at the end of the game from the Galactic Federation HQ, we see it stationed on what looks like Japan. Now, I'm not being biased or racist here, but why the crap is it based in Japan? I get the Japanese have a space program, but why wouldn't the United States or Canada be the more likely choice, especially given that Samus is blonde? And the number of Japanese with natural blonde hair is equal to the number of women who would willingly date me without it being a ruse of some sort. And if not the US or Canada, why not Sweden or some other neutral country? It may be that our media here doesn't cover it, but I just don't see Japan being the seat of the Galactic Federation. But now we get into my least favorite part of the game. The gameplay. Let me start by saying that this is when Nintendo was starting to have a return to form for a number of franchises. Kirby's Return to Dreamland, the new Super Mario Bros. Franchise, and Donkey Kong Country Returns. Though 2 games came after this one, this was around the time when Nintendo was bringing old franchises back to their roots. This means that Other M is a 2D Metroid game, right? Wrong. It feels like the designers couldn't agree on whether the game should be 2D or 3D, so they made a hybrid. Have linear hallways with 3D movement within them and a few large chambers here and there. This basically results in you getting hit by enemies you can't see because you moved forward in the room, but they're still behind you. The auto-aiming is a pain as well, because rather than shooting enemies that you're looking straight at, it decides that shooting enemies in glass tubes that cannot break and therefore cannot hurt you is the much larger priority. Oh, but there's a first-person mode if you're really having that much trouble. Oh, cool, it'll play like Metroid Prime? No, because you don't get to move, you can only look around and shoot things. It gets worse when you learn that you can only control the game with the Wii Remote sideways for movement, pointing at the screen to go into first person, and vertically to recharge. See, if you're going to make us move through a 3-dimensional environment, using a joystick would be helpful. And we all have nunchucks for our controllers. they came with the Wii in the first place. While I will go to the grave saying a D-pad is better for side-scrolling games, excluding water levels where you are allowed to swim in any direction, of course, this game is not a side-scroller, so letting us use a joystick would have been the better option. Though I do like how fast Samus moves in normal play, and they made her control as smoothly as they could with a D-pad in a 3D environment. Now, the game likes to spawn soldier enemies that are ridiculously hard, and they're not even bosses. The challenge of Metroid should come from exploration, not mini-bosses. Mini-bosses are there to keep you on your toes, and with the regularity of these soldiers, it starts to get real old real fast. Oh, but you can recharge your missiles anytime you want, and you can recharge your health when it gets low by holding up the Wii remote. Now, I could critique how it takes too long and there's hardly ever cover in the room, so you'll die if you try to recharge your health. So why not let us recharge our health anytime we want, and not just when it's in the red?
Because if we let you do that, the game would be too easy,
I hear Team Ninja say. Well, if you let us recover more if we pick up concentration power-ups, that could have nerfed it out a bit. And had you not removed health drops from enemies, we could have used those as pick-me-ups in the game. Plus, when Halo introduced regenerating health, they did it so they could provide a challenge to people without being unfair, or having to guesstimate how much health a player would have at that point in the game. By letting us recharge our health anytime we want, the challenge could have still been there in killing the monsters because we couldn't have all of our health back if we don't have all the concentration. This would mean that we would have to focus on getting through a room with only so much health and making the challenge in exploring the game, like a Metroid's challenge should be.
Shut up,
say the people at Team Ninja. Yeah, that's what I thought. There are also over-the-shoulder sections where Samus controls so slowly, but the camera will change direction very quickly. They probably did this for pacing, but why not let Samus move faster through here? It just doesn't feel right. Aside from this, there is Investigative Samus, where you're forced into first person to copy the Batman Arkham series in finding clues and evidence. However, often I have no idea what I'm looking for. Batman will at least narrate what he needs to find, so the one time you want Samus to talk, she'll keep her lips shut. Bosses are varied throughout the game, and they're alright for the most part. However, the boss they led up to this entire time is completely overshadowed by the boss right before, the Metroid Queen. After you beat the Queen, there's a long cutscene, then a short first-person fight, then another cutscene ending it all. So much disappointment. Now, before you go typing saying that there's a boss after the end credits in an epilogue sequence, let me tell you why it doesn't work. First, an example from another game, Bayonetta. From what I understand, they built up Jubileus throughout the entire game as the big baddie. You get to the end credits, nothing happens, then wham! You finally meet the biggest and hardest boss of the entire game. After the end credits roll, then you are taken to the ship to explore a tiny bit more, fight some more difficult soldiers, then the final boss, which I didn't bother to do because A, they couldn't fit it before the end credits like they should have, and B, they had no explanation of why this guy was there. No experiments explaining it at all. Though there might have been an explanation based on the Japanese manual for Super Metroid in Japan, it makes no sense in America. Come to think of it, the bosses from older Metroid games that were here didn't get any explanation at all.
Ah, but we didn't explain the other bosses,
says Team Ninja. Yes, but some bosses I understand are bioweapons. Why are bosses like Nightmare from Fusion here where you have to kill it and still be able to kill it again in Fusion, without it being something like Meta Ridley?
Well, the old bosses need no explanation, and you just said how you liked how Ridley made his return.
True, but his return was not laced with exposition. Why did the Queen Metroid need so much explaining when we, the audience, could just relate it to how bee colonies have their queens?
Shut up,
Team Ninja repeats. It's time for developers. Please take my ideas. With Metroid Other M, idiots like those commonly found on the internet just want another Metroid Prime game, saying that this game proved that a side-scrolling Metroid title can't be done these days. However, as we've just established, Metroid Other M is not a side-scroller, it is just a poorly put together 3D game. So here's my thought.
Just remake Super Metroid already. My only problem with that game is that Samus controls more stiffly in that game than the newer ones. Take Zero Mission's control feel into consideration for this remake, and I don't care if you make it for 3DS or Wii U, just do it! You will learn what made Metroid great in the first place, the atmosphere and the exploration, not necessarily the combat. Just do it already. Seriously, screw Attack Metroid Prime.
This game made me cry. No, I'm not just doing that for humor on the internet. This game made me, a self-admitted Nintendo fanboy, cry. I have to give it an F+. Yeah, it has some gems, it's functional, but it made me want to stop playing. It made me cry. I can't do this game anymore. See you all next week.
Hey, if you liked my video, then why not throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel? And while you're commenting, suggest a game for me to critique sometime later.